There is a 1,348-foot snake built into a hilltop in southern Ohio. It was constructed over 2,000 years ago. Nobody knows who built it. Nobody is entirely sure why. And the head of the snake is aligned to the summer solstice sunset with a precision that modern surveyors have confirmed but cannot explain with the tools available at the time. Ohio does not look like a place hiding ancient mysteries. It looks like corn and highways. But underneath the farmland, this state contains the densest concentration of pre-Columbian earthworks in the Western Hemisphere. These are 10 of them, and by number 1, you will understand why NASA used Ohio's ancient geometry to communicate with extraterrestrial intelligence. Number 10. Miamisburg Mound, the largest conical mound in Ohio that nobody has fully excavated. In the city of Miamisburg, 10 miles south of Dayton, a grass-covered cone rises 65 feet above the surrounding neighborhood. It is the largest conical burial mound in Ohio and one of the largest in eastern North America. The mound was built by the Adena culture roughly 2,000 years ago. A partial excavation in 1869 uncovered human remains, bark-wrapped burial bundles, and artifacts at multiple levels, suggesting the mound was built in stages over centuries. But the excavation stopped. The lower levels have never been opened. What lies beneath the deepest layers of the Miamisburg Mound, who was placed there first and what they were buried with, remains unknown. 65 feet of hand-carried earth. Constructed over centuries, partially opened once in 1869, never finished. The mound sits in a public park surrounded by suburban homes. Children play on the hill. The people buried inside it predate Christ. Number 9. Flint Ridge, the ancient quarry that supplied tools to half a continent. In Licking County, roughly 40 miles east of Columbus, a ridge of multicolored flint extends for roughly 8 miles through the Ohio hills. This is Flint Ridge, and for over 10,000 years it was one of the most important industrial sites in North America. The flint from this ridge is distinctive. Reds, blues, greens, greys, streaked with bands of color that are unique to this geological formation. When archaeologists find Ohio flint at a site in Louisiana, or Wisconsin, or Ontario, they know exactly where it came from. The material is a fingerprint. Flint Ridge tools have been found across an area stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. The quarry pits, some over 10 feet deep, were worked continuously for millennia. The people who dug them left behind thousands of tons of debitage, waste flakes from tool production, creating a landscape of mounds and pits that covers hundreds of acres. A quarry worked for 10,000 years. Tools distributed across half a continent. The ancient world's equivalent of a factory, operating in Ohio's hills since the end of the last ice age. The ridge is still there, the flint is still in the ground, and the trade network that distributed it was functioning before Egypt had a written language. Number 8. Sunwatch Village, Dayton. The solar calendar built into a village layout. In 1988, archaeologists excavating a site along the Great Miami River in Dayton discovered something unexpected. The village they were uncovering was not arranged randomly. It was arranged astronomically. Sunwatch was a Fort Ancient Culture village occupied around 1200 AD. The houses were positioned in a circular pattern around a central plaza. In the center of that plaza stood a series of wooden posts. When researchers plotted the alignment of the posts against the horizon, the pattern matched. The posts tracked the position of the sun throughout the year, solstices, equinoxes. The posts functioned as a solar calendar. The village was designed so that the architecture itself told the residents what time of year it was. The sunrise aligned with specific posts on specific dates. The entire community was oriented around the movement of the sun across the sky. 800 years ago, in what is now a suburb of Dayton, Ohio, a community built their homes in a circle and placed posts in the ground that tracked the sun with precision that would require surveying equipment to replicate today. The village has been reconstructed. The posts are back in position, and on the summer solstice, the sunrise still lines up exactly where it did in 1200 AD. Number 7. Fort Ancient. 18,000 feet of walls that were not a fort. In Warren County, overlooking the Little Miami River, a system of earthen walls extends for over 3.5 miles along the edges of a plateau 270 feet above the river valley. The walls enclose roughly 100 acres. The site is called Fort Ancient. It is not a fort. The Hopewell culture built these walls between roughly 100 BC and 500 AD. The walls are not defensive. They have gaps. They do not encircle the entire hilltop. They would be useless against an attacking force. What they do is frame specific views of the horizon and create enclosed spaces that align with celestial events. Researchers have documented lunar and solar alignments throughout the complex. The walls were built to create a ceremonial landscape, not a military one. The 18,000 feet of earthen embankment were carried by hand, basket by basket, to the hilltop over a period of roughly 600 years. The early European settlers who named it Fort Ancient assumed the walls were defensive because that was the only framework they had for massive earthworks. The people who actually built it had a different framework. They were building a calendar out of dirt on a hilltop. That took 600 years to complete. Number 6. Mound City, Chillicothe, the city of the dead that the military built a training camp on top of. In Chillicothe, the first capital of Ohio, a complex of 24 burial mounds sits within a rectangular earthen enclosure covering 13 acres. Mound City was built by the Hopewell culture roughly 2,000 years ago. The artifacts recovered from these mounds include some of the most extraordinary pre-Columbian objects ever found in North America. Copper falcon effigies, mica cutouts in the shapes of human hands and bear claws, obsidian spear points made from volcanic glass that originated in Yellowstone, over 1,500 miles away, conch shells from the Gulf of Mexico, shark teeth from the Atlantic, grizzly bear canines from the Rocky Mountains. The Hopewell at Mound City were trading with the entire continent. Their burial goods read like a map of North America drawn in luxury materials. During World War I, the US Army built Camp Sherman directly on top of the site. The mounds were leveled for training grounds. After the war, archaeologists excavated what remained and reconstructed the mounds based on original survey data from the 1840s. What you see today at Mound City is a reconstruction of mounds that were built 2,000 years ago, destroyed 100 years ago, and rebuilt 80 years ago. The artifacts survived because they were underground. The mound survived because someone decided the dead deserved their shapes back. The military camp is gone. The mounds are still there. For the second time. If you are learning things about Ohio that you never expected, hit like and subscribe. We keep finding ancient structures hiding in states that nobody thinks to look at. Number 5. The alligator effigy mound, the giant animal built into a hilltop that is not an alligator. In Granville, Licking County, an earthen mound shaped like a four-legged animal stretches 200 feet across a hilltop overlooking Raccoon Creek. It was built by the Fort Ancient culture roughly 800 to 1,000 years ago. Early settlers called it the alligator mound because they thought the shape resembled an alligator. The problem is that alligators have never lived in Ohio. The nearest alligator habitat is roughly 700 miles to the south. Researchers now believe the mound represents either an opossum or an underwater panther, a powerful spiritual figure in many indigenous cosmologies that combined features of a cat, a serpent, and a deer. An underwater panther built into a hilltop in Ohio by people who considered it powerful enough to shape their landscape around. The mound is one of only 2 known effigy mounds in the state. It has never been excavated. Whatever is inside it, if anything, remains undiscovered. The animal on the hilltop has been lying there for 1,000 years, and nobody alive can say with certainty what it is. Number 4. The Portsmouth Earthworks. The geometric complex that was destroyed before anyone understood what it was. At the confluence of the Ohio and Scioto rivers, the Hopewell built one of the largest geometric earthwork complexes in the ancient world. Massive circles, squares, and parallel-walled avenues extended for miles across the river terraces. The geometry was precise. The scale was immense. And by the time professional archaeologists arrived, most of it was gone. The city of Portsmouth was built on top of the earthworks. Streets were laid over the walls. Buildings were constructed in the enclosures. What survived exists primarily in survey maps drawn by Ephraim Square and Edwin Davis in the 1840s before the destruction was complete. Those maps show something that modern researchers find difficult to reconcile. The circles and squares at Portsmouth were mathematically standardized. The same unit of measurement, roughly 1,054 feet for the diameter of the circles, appears at Portsmouth, at Newark, at Chillicothe, and at other Hopewell sites across Ohio. The same diameter, at different sites. Separated by dozens of miles, the Hopewell had a standard unit of measurement. They applied it consistently across an area the size of a small European country. And the evidence for that standardization is mostly buried under a city that was built without knowing or caring what was underneath it. Number 3. The Newark Earthworks. The largest geometric earthwork complex on Earth. Part of it is a golf course. In Newark, Ohio, 30 miles east of Columbus, the Hopewell built something that modern archaeologists still struggle to adequately describe. A complex of geometric earthworks covering roughly 4 square miles, circles, octagons, squares, and parallel walls connected by avenues, all constructed with a precision that satellite imagery has confirmed but 19th century observers could barely comprehend. The octagon earthworks, the most remarkable surviving section, consists of a near-perfect octagon connected to a near-perfect circle by a pair of parallel walls. The octagon encloses 50 acres. The combined complex covers over 138 acres, and the entire structure is aligned to the 18.6-year lunar cycle, specifically to the northernmost moonrise, an astronomical event so rare and complex that it was not understood by Western science until relatively recently. The Hopewell tracked a lunar cycle that takes nearly 2 decades to complete and built an earthwork that marks its most extreme position on the horizon, 2,000 years ago. Without written mathematics, without telescopes, without any tool that we can identify in the archaeological record. The Octagon Earthworks spent most of the 20th century as a private golf course operated by the Mounds Country Club. In 2023, after a legal battle that reached the Ohio Supreme Court, the state reclaimed the site. The golf course is being removed, the earthworks will be restored. In 2025, the Newark Earthworks were inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the same designation given to the pyramids, Stonehenge and Machu Picchu. A 2,000-year-old lunar observatory in Ohio, built by people with no written language that spent a century as a golf course, is now recognized as one of the most significant archaeological sites on the planet. Number 2. Serpent Mound, the largest effigy mound on Earth built on an ancient impact crater in Adams County. In the rolling hills of southern Ohio, a serpentine earthwork stretches 1,348 feet along a ridge overlooking Brush Creek. The Great Serpent Mound is the largest surviving effigy mound in the world. Viewed from above, the shape is unmistakable. A snake, its body coiling in 7 deep curves, its mouth open around an oval object that may represent the sun, the moon, an egg, or something that has no modern name. The mound was originally attributed to the Adena culture, roughly 2,000 years ago. More recent dating of the site, using optically stimulated luminescence, has suggested a construction date around 1070 AD, which would place it in the Fort Ancient period. The dating remains contested. The identity of the builders is not settled, but the geology beneath the serpent adds a layer that makes the mystery deeper. Serpent Mound sits directly on the edge of a crypto-explosion structure, a 4-mile-wide disturbance in the bedrock caused by either a volcanic event or a meteorite impact roughly 300 million years ago. The builders chose this specific ridge on this specific geological anomaly for reasons they did not record. The head of the serpent aligns with the summer solstice sunset. The coils have been correlated with lunar alignments. The tail points to the winter solstice sunrise. The entire structure may function as an astronomical marker, a calendar written in earth and grass on a ridge that sits on a 300-million-year-old scar from the sky. A 1,348-foot snake, built on an impact crater, aligned to the solstice, by people whose identity is still debated. In a state that most Americans associate with football and farming, the serpent has been lying on that ridge for somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 years, and nobody alive can say with certainty who put it there or what it was for. Number 1. The image of Ohio's earthworks that left the solar system. In 1977, NASA launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 from Cape Canaveral. Each spacecraft carried a golden record, a 12-inch gold-plated disc containing sounds, images, and information intended to represent human civilization to any extraterrestrial intelligence that might find them. The committee that assembled the golden record, chaired by Carl Sagan, selected 116 images to represent humanity, photographs of Earth, diagrams of human anatomy, mathematical concepts, depictions of human culture, architecture, and achievement. One of those images is an aerial photograph of the geometric earthworks of Ohio. When Carl Sagan's team looked for a single image that could communicate human intelligence, mathematical capability, and cultural sophistication to a civilization that had never seen Earth, they chose an earthwork built by the Hopewell in Ohio over 2,000 years ago. Not the pyramids, not the Parthenon, not the Great Wall, the geometric earthworks of Ohio. A circle and an octagon aligned to the lunar cycle built by hand in a river valley in North America by people who left no written record of their names. That image is now roughly 15 billion miles from Earth, traveling through interstellar space at 38,000 miles per hour. It has passed beyond the boundary of the solar system. It is the farthest any human-made object has ever traveled, and on it, representing the intelligence and capability of the entire human species, is a photograph of something that was built in Ohio. The earthworks are still in the ground, the golf course is being removed, the UNESCO designation is in place, and somewhere in interstellar space, a gold disc is carrying an image of those earthworks past stars that the people who built them watched from the same hilltop 2,000 years ago. That is Ohio. And that is why ancient structures in states that nobody thinks to look at are sometimes the ones worth looking at the most. 10 structures, A 65-foot burial mound, never fully excavated, a quarry worked for 10,000 years, a solar calendar built into a village layout, walls that took 600 years to build and were never a fort, a snake 1,348 feet long on an impact crater aligned to the solstice, and a geometric earthwork so extraordinary that NASA chose it to represent human intelligence to whatever is out there. Ohio has more ancient earthworks per square mile than anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere. Most of them are under parking lots, golf courses, and suburbs. The ones that survived are now being recognized as some of the most significant structures on the planet. Like this video if you just learned that Ohio has ancient history that rivals Egypt. Subscribe for the next state in the series. We will see you there.